Okay, welcome back everyone for Thursday's afternoon demo session. We're recreating a website. And I'll go ahead and share my screen. We're recreating a website. And then after this, we'll be doing some lab and code reviews. So again, continue on with profile page and user card. Moving my Zoom tools around, so give me a second. Okay, so we're going to be mocking a website. And so I picked this one here. It's a pretty simple standard view for a website. And we need to learn how we would use Flex to do this. But before we do this, I want to talk about this. There, as I mentioned in the first lecture, is a specific trick to this puzzle. And I will go ahead and explain how I would build this page. So I'm going to give a layout of an answer that you can use to solve this one, even if you haven't reached here yet. So whenever you look at a page, you got to think of building these different sections of these areas as bricks, as blocks. Which ones should be connected, which ones don't need to be. What I see here is that I have to create a giant black one that stretches across the screen. And we're not creating this for every single type of view of a page that you can stretch out. Okay, we're just going to imagine a window is stretched to this proportion, and that will make a navbar block that I guess this can be moved with the screen, but it doesn't matter. It just needs to be this wide. Okay, then we have the main content that we see in the center of the page. So this blue area here, this is the main content, and it's centered in the middle of the page. So we had to have a big giant block centered on the page. So this red area is more like a parking lot. All right, so this blue area, this is our house. This is the main content. This is something that we are going to have to cut up into pieces, into rooms, and figure out how our tools can arrange this pattern. So I'll go ahead and choose a different color. I'll say I need this to be in 2 columns. As I explained the first time, the puzzle is that this area here it makes it so there's neither a row here from this angle or from this angle that you can cut this and make it evenly for the blocks on the top or the bottom. So we have to, what we have to do is, let me erase those squiggles. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so this is our main house. We have to cut this into 2 columns. The first column will be the one on the left. And then we'll have another column that's the column on the right. In these columns is where we'll put each card. So these will be treated as blocks within the giant blue, we called it house, big blue house. These are two now blocks within these blocks. And then we want to cut these into sections. And that's easy to do. Then we just do the user card. We put that inside our left column. We can do our education card inside our left column. Then we do the individual divs. Only after we've cut this main section into two columns and have those two columns hold each side that we need to pile up. Different sized divs for the cards. Say this one as well. Okay, so these four cards have to live in two separate columns inside the main content area in order to make this work. Okay, let's get some feedback on how I'm explaining this. Ask me any questions
I
about
have a
what
question.
Yeah.
So you could it sounds like that would be the easier way to do it, but you could still do that even with rows. It might be a little, maybe might have to finesse with the margins and the padding, but you could still do it.
How would you do it with rows?
I think the only thing, so instead of the columns, so I would do everything you said. I think, well, I personally was going to do the columns, but I was thinking if you were to do the rows, you would do the rows. So you would have a row up here that kind of ends here, and then you use the aligned vertical top. And then with your lower row, you just increase the margin for the education to push it down, no?
Well, none of these rows align evenly. So you can get this to come to the top, but because this isn't how the problem would be with your connections. So I guess you'd have to annotate the screen in order to explain how this would be. And I don't mind answering this question, but it really is no possible row, because if this left one here profile card were to go across like that, this your connections is butting in. There's no way you can actually get it inside.
Because you can't use the position in this.
Well, it would create, if you created a row that would be the height of this profile card and the connection request, that one would have at this area, let me point to it. At this area here, it would not allow access in. Your connections would stop.
Even
Right.
with the position collab?
Position, no, you can't use position. Well, what unless what rule are you applying?
I know you said to use position only if asked, but I was just thinking.
Oh no, position you can't use. I see. No, you can't use position at all as a way to solve this one.
Okay, but if you try to,
yeah, if technically you could make it work using position, you could make it go into this area. That is an instance of that, but then that would be using position. So that would
right. Okay, so that would be the only way I feel like you would do the rows is if you use that, which we can't. So now you have to do the columns.
Yes, so the columns are the only way this could work.
Got it.
Question.
Yes.
Is it possible to achieve this with nothing but margin and maybe even padding with 4 individual boxes? So if you made one big container, made the education card, the user card, connection request, all different boxes and play with their height and width.
You can make them 4 individual boxes. Sure, but how would you get them to align this way?
Well, the top is aligned.
The
So
top,
that's basically
what are
it.
you talking, when you say top, what
So
do you mean?
the top of the box, so where you see Jane Doe, the left hand corner, that's aligned over it. So you can use that kind of as your ruler. And with the rest of the boxes, you're essentially just playing with that height and width.
Well, no, what the problem is though, is that you can, these top are aligned, that's good, and that's, but these bottom have to be aligned as well in order, or even with these bottom aligned, how do you get your connections into this top row area? It wouldn't fit because it would be defined by the rectangle that is the width of this Jane Doe card, or the height of this Jane Doe card. So because it would be impeding in this rectangle, you have to have a way that you would organize the divs on your page in order to make the design that you're trying to make work. So
Okay.
I'll explain it one more time, and then I'll take a poll, make sure we're understanding this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I would create a nav bar right here. Okay. The second thing I would do is create a main content section here. Inside this main content section, you create 2 columns, the left-hand column, and you create the right-hand column. Now that you have 2 columns in the main section, you put them side by side with each other using flex. Then you can use a little margin and padding to separate the space between these 2 columns. Then you would create inside the left column the Jane Doe card, and then you make the other one, the education card. You don't have to apply flex on these 2 because naturally they're going to stack on top of each other, as divs do. They stack on top of each other because they're blocks. Okay, so you just make 2 divs inside the left column, 2 divs inside the right column. Then you can adjust the heights to what they need to be. And use padding or margin however you need to adjust that div. Use the height that you think that it would be in at a border. Okay. I'm trying to highlight the last one. Okay, so there it is. I will go ahead and build the website that I mentioned. We're already 15 minutes into this lecture, so we have 45 minutes to recreate this website. So let's look at what we're making. Oh, let me just clear that out. I'm going to recreate this here, at least to this area that says get started with Django. Okay. But by the way, let me just launch a poll to ask how much the cutting up of the page into columns made sense. Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pull up my Visual Studio Code here. Okay, I got my folder open. I'm going to rename this index.html. Style.css. And I'll create the boilerplate. We want to link the CSS. Say link CSS called style.css. So that's what I have here, and that's what's going to be here. So I will set a all selector for margin and padding. And if my H1 is on the top left corner, then I know it's connected. Okay, it's on the top left corner, no spaces there, it's connected. Okay, so let's look at this page and think to ourselves about how we're going to have to cut this up. First thing I notice is the nav bar. Everything here is actually going to be just in rows. So this is just a practice. It's not actually necessary to understand how I would do this page. But I have this area here, and I'll create a flex nav bar. I'll create a div for these two here, and these will live in their own area. I'll have to put flex on this orange div, and I'll have to create a list here of links. And on this list, I'll have to use flex as well to make them go horizontal. Then below, I have this area. I'm going to have to create a second row below the nav bar. And in this row here, I'll create a giant H1 that stretches across there and just a button below. Inside here, I'm going to have to create some padding to make the distance between the top and bottom. Here, I'm trying to draw. This area here, I'm going to have to use some padding. Okay. And that's it. I think I will get only this far. And then maybe I'll move on to another assignment if I finish this in time. So let's go ahead. Maybe we'll do the rest of the page. Okay, this is a good view. All right, so what I'll need is inside my body, instead of an H1, I'm going to create a nav. That will be for my nav bar. Inside my nav, I have the top left section, the top left area here that I'm saying holds Django and the web framework for perfectionists with deadlines. So I'm creating this section here inside my nav now. So I'll call that I guess I'll call it header, like navbar header. So we'll say div dot nav bar header. Okay, now that I'm here, I want to create that H1 that says Django. And create a P tag that says the web framework for perfectionists. Okay, let's see what we have now. Okay, so there it is. And now that we have a nav, we want to style it. So you don't want to build the whole HTML skeleton all at once. You want to style as you're working. So we have this here applied. That's good. Now let's target the nav bar. And say background color. No, first we have to give it a height to give it dimension. So we'll say height is 100 pixels. Okay, no view, but if we add a background color, and we want to make it that dark gray or green actually. So if I use this color picker here, and I hover over that green color, this is an extension I got from the extension store called Color Picker. So now it gives me that hex code for that green. If I refresh, nothing's there. Okay, so what happened here? We have our
Name the class right. It's navbar.
We need it to target what we need to do is say actually not target navbar, but the nav itself. So I'm just targeting the nav now with this. Good catch on that as well, Tillman. No, it was this that it needed. So we have here now one div inside our nav bar. So this nav has one child. So that's the child that we've created here. And we want it to look like this now. So let's create it to look like that. Here, we'll go ahead and say text needs to be white, font needs to be white. So we'll target the top of this class here. We'll say in this class, color of the text is white. And then we also say, in this area, we want it to be display flex. That makes them to be aligned perfectly there in a horizontal way. We need them to be now align item center. To be leveled out in the middle. And this div itself needs to have some height so that it can be centered in the green area. So we say height 100%. That means it takes up 100% of its parent's height. We define its parent's height here in the nav. So now this is centered here in the green area. And it's not exactly like this here. We need to target the H1 and make it a lot larger, as well as indent here on this 4. So on this 4, I'll add a BR tag on mine, and it will indent there as well. So now it almost looks like this. I need to make this white color a little bit dimmer and make this a lot larger. Okay, so let's do that really quick. We want to go to .navbar header. Inside this header, I want to grab the H1, and I want to say font size 20 pixels, maybe 30 pixels. That's better. Maybe larger. Okay. And maybe some margin right. And we need to make this here appear on the left-hand side of the page. And to have this list of links here as well. So let me finish this up. And I have to move this in another area. But what I'll do here is finish this div and then create an unordered list. Before I continue with this list, let's get a poll check 1 to 10. How are we feeling about what I'm doing so far? Is it making sense?
One question about the nav tag under the body. What is the difference in using nav or you just using a div?
I just decided to name it something different, and there is such a thing as a nav tag. So there is no difference in its behavior, just that this one has a specific name called nav that I can target just like this without having to give it a class.
Okay, got you.
And it makes the page a little bit easier to read instead of everything just being divs. So it makes it unique. All right, so now we need to make the right side of the nav bar. And we're going to have to use some unordered list. Oh, I already created that. So here we are. And I want to create comments as I work. So I'm going to say, this is the nav bar. And I'm going to say left area of navbar. And I want to make these comments kind of stand out, so I'm using them as divisions for myself to look on when I'm coding. So here I am going to write a comment. I'm going to say right area of navbar. So there it is. Okay, so now this unordered list, I'm going to count here how many I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this little sticker. So 9. So I'll say li times 9. Okay, now that I'm here, I can go ahead and type in what I see. Overview. Download. There's even a symbol that you can use if you find the code combination. I just happen to have it. I'm trying to copy it. And then the last one is a small image, is that little image of the half moon thing. So I will say after this li image, and I'll say this will be half moon symbol. Oh, that's dark light mode. Dark light mode button. Okay, I have this image here. So now I just locate it. Say /. I'll grab that image. It should be in its own folder. Images folder. I need to pull this in. Delete everything inside and do // again. Click images, then images.png. Okay, it's going to be probably big, but we need to target it and make it small. So to the only image on our page, we want to say height 15 pixels. Border radius 50 pixels. Or 50%. Okay, so now we have this list. We need it to be in this area. The reason it's not is because
Josh, real quick, what's the point of the border radius?
it's just to make it a circle. I'm just cutting off the edges because it's already a circle. It's
Oh, gotcha. Like we did the other day.
Yeah. So, okay. I need to put this area of this list on the right-hand side over here. So what I have to do here now is control this list. So as I write comments, I want to keep my CSS rules in the same order that I see things here in this HTML page appear. If I'm working on the nav, I don't want to see it at the bottom. I want to see it at the top, or the top of my HTML where that nav is. So keep your CSS in order as well. So I have my list. Now I need to go into the parent, which is the nav, and tell its children to be side by side. The way I'm going to do that is by saying display flex. Now it's in the green area. It's itself still horizontally stacked. That's because I didn't say display flex to the UL. The UL has to have flex applied for its own children to be horizontal. But between the UL and the div, this is the generation of children of this nav. This nav's two generation children here are what are stacking next to each other, side by side here at the left hand view of the green nav bar. We need them to be flex, and we need this one to be its own flex div. But for now, this is what we have. So let's go ahead and make this one horizontal as well. So we'll go into the UL. I'm going to say UL here. I'm going to say display flex. Now it's going to be horizontal. We want this to also be vertically aligned. So we'll say vertical align center. Vertical align center. We also need it to be centered in the nav bar header. Oh, I see. Okay, our UL also needs to have a height of 100%. Is that not it? Let me see here. When you get stuck on not knowing what it is that you need to change, always go to the inspect tool, click on this mouse here, and see here what is the issue with this not being centered. So we have our UL. Maybe it's because the width is not defined for the nav. The nav's width is not defined. So let's say the nav width is 1,400 pixels. That's where it ends. And we want the UL to be on the right hand side. So we're going to have to go to the nav and say justify content space between. I just want to see them separate. Okay. Oh, and here we have to also say align item center. Now that they're on the edges here, I want them to be actually spaced evenly. That looks a little bit more accurate to what we're seeing here. Okay. The nav bar header has display flex, align item center, has a height of 100%, which is of this height here, 100 pixels. Then we have the UL. Maybe we need to give our UL a class name. Anyone have any ideas as to why this is not centering?
No, I was having the same problem.
Is it because of the vertical align center and not the align item center?
Ah, that's what it is. Good catch. There it is. Okay, we also want our color to be white. And list style none. And here also we want to say justify content space between. It's too jumbled up here. I think it's the font size. Font size. I remove the width. We need to make an actual width for the UL. So when everything is stuck together here like this, what the issue is that just because I have justify content space between and things spread out, they don't have an area to go to. So we have to say width. Let's see, 500 pixels. I don't think that's a lot. So we'll give them 1,500. No, see, that's too far. There we are. Okay. So that's the head. That's the header. Could be a little smaller. No. Okay, so now that we have this, we can move on to the body. So this area here is one giant block. Inside this block, we have this message and this button. So let's create that block. Underneath the nav, it's like this block is a jumbo header. So we'll call this one div.jumbo header. Enter. Okay, we're inside now. Now that we're here inside, we'll give the H1. What does the thing say? Django makes it easier to build. Okay. Django makes it easier to build better web. Add a BR, so it breaks there. Say apps more quickly and with less code. So let's view it. There it is. And we also have the button. Yeah, the button's supposed to be in the same div as the jumbo header. So we'll say button dot main button. And inside here, I'll say get started with Django. Okay, there's my header, my button. Now we need to spread it to this area in the center with a black background. So jumbo header. We are going to make a comment in our code here. It says main content. Also in our CSS, main content. So now we'll say dot jumbo header. We'll create that rule that says background color. Let's find what the color is. Pick. Okay, I've got it. So we have this black area. Okay. We need it to be taller. So the height's got to be 500 pixels. Okay, that's pretty good. And it needs a white bottom here. So we'll say border bottom, 2 pixels, solid white. We need an area below it to see the border. So I'll mess with that later. So we need to create here this H1 is affected. Well, it needs to actually change. So what we need to do is say inside the jumbo header, jumbo header, H1 in here its color needs to be white. It also needs to be in the center of the page. So we'll say text align center. And it needs to have some space from the top. So I'll say margin top. %. No, that's not going to work. Tried something new there. 100. Say to, if the height is 500 pixels, I'm going to estimate its halfway point is going to be, actually, no, it's not going to work like that. So we need to not affect this yet. And push it down from the inside. So we'll say jumbo header, padding top, (200 pixels). And the height actually is just 300. Okay, so now we need a button to be more in the center. So we go to this button. We say dot main button margin 0 auto. Did I target it? This button needs to be like way over here. So what I can do instead of margin 0 auto is look here at the jumbo header. And I want to see here what is making this not move to the center with margin 0 auto. This is his own row. I know what I can do. This is not the best technique, but it'll work. And it's just as good a reason as any. So we can say margin left. About 40% of the page. Okay. So more like 45%. Then you have a margin top. About 35 pixels. Okay, so that's more like it. Now we need to increase the size. So we'll do that with saying the width should be 200 pixels. Probably more. $400. Oh no, that's way too big. Okay. So there it is, width 400 pixels, height maybe like 60 pixels. Then we say the font size be like 18 pixels. And then we look for the background color. So we get it, and then we say background color. Ah, got that ugly green. There it is. Okay. All right. Maybe round out the corners a little bit, say border radius 10 pixels. That looks a little bit more like the button. And if we say border 1 pixel solid that color, then it makes it all smoothed out like that. Okay, and there we have the introduction to a website. All we have to do now is change the font, and we can look through Google Fonts on how to do that. But this one was very simple. This one was just 2 rows. Everyone was following that. Very simple design. We just have a row up here up top and a row below. That's all my goal was for this website. If I wanted to make the bottom section, what would I have to do then? I'd have to make this whole area and then say left column, right column. Then I would start to create columns. Anyone have any questions as to why I would choose columns there? It's because of these different buttons, these intersecting lines that you see here. It's these lines here. This isn't even with anything. This goes up and down. So this has to be in its own stack of objects, column here, column on the left. So let's continue. Let's go ahead and think about how we would do something else. All right, let's look at this assignment called Dojo Weather. How would I create this? How should I create this? I would make a header. Then I make the main content. Okay, the main content. This area below. Actually, this area. Okay, in this main content area, you have one row. I should pick a different color there. This top row here. Then you have 4 columns below. Column 1. Inside this column, we have a header, a picture, a little p tag, and then 2 numbers there. So you have to create a diagram of areas on your page that you have to either make columns or leave as rows every time. Okay, this is step 1. If you don't take time to diagram your page as to how you would build it, which rows are going to be clusters, which of the divs are going to be columns versus which we can allow to be rows, then you're going to get halfway through your page and realize you're trying to do something that is structurally impossible at the point that you're at, and that you'd have to start over and re-diagram your page in order to get the desired view that you're looking for. So you have to take that first 10 minutes to diagram a page. Let's go over another one. Look at this one. This one's simple. What you would have to do here is cut out a header. All right, so we start there. Then you have a main content section. This main content section below has 2 columns. So in order to make them columns side by side, you just apply flex to the container. In this case, it would be the orange one. Then you make a left column, and then you make a right column. The left column contains 2 cards. The right column just contains 1 card at the top.
You could do a row with this one too, right?
Yeah, you can make this a row as well. Yeah, technically no problem with a row, because this would fit neatly. So this is both. You can do, this is where it doesn't matter. But yeah, you're right. Look at this way. There's no conflict of lines there. You can make this a row, then you can make this bottom area a row. So good point. But you have to pick a way before you start, because if you're just writing it, you're improvising, you realize if there needed to be some thought you needed to put into it to design it, you would have missed that opportunity to do it. And now you're missing completely what it is you need to do. So your diagram, screenshot it, and then just have it sitting on the side of a screen somewhere as you're building. Okay, I don't have to do that because I'm already at the place where I can see it in my head as I'm writing the HTML, but it would be helpful if I had screen space to cut this out and put this on the side before I would start this. Okay. So let me ask now, do we understand the necessity for cutting out our project into pieces and how to go about creating it using Flex? Did I help answer any questions you had on your assignments that were getting stuck? All right, well then that ends this afternoon lecture session. We'll go ahead and move to code reviews after this. It will be, let's see who's in today's session.
I just looked at it, looks like just me. So
So Dan, would you mind going
Yeah.
to?
for sure, I'll go to Monday. Going with Zach.
Okay, with Monday then it's fine. Okay. All right then. No code reviews today. I'll be jumping in your guys' rooms to make sure you are making progress. So thank you guys for a good afternoon session. I don't have any jokes for you. That's just how it is today. Sorry. It's a grim day.